So fuel up on the high octane and rev the engine into gear. It's the return of the Road Warrior with Mad Max Fury Road. Haunted by his turbulent past, Mac Rockatansky believes the best way to survive is to wander alone. Nevertheless, he becomes swept up with a group fleeing across the wasteland in a war rig, driven by the elite Imperator, Furiosa. They are escaping a citadel tyrannized by the Immortan Joe, from whom something irreplaceable has been taken in the form of his breeder wives. Enraged, the warlord marshals all his gangs and pursues the rebels ruthlessly in the high-octane road war that follows. Thus, the only objective for Max and Furiosa now becomes to simply survive. So co-writer and director George Miller returns to the franchise he created with Mad Max, Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, 30 years after the last film, to bring us a film that is getting mass amounts of praise, and for a lot of good reason. Now, I tried about 2 years ago to get into the Mad Max films, and I don't know, maybe at the time I just wasn't really kind of zoned into the films, really kind of hooked me in to stay with them all the way, and one I kind of kept going with a little bit until I started fast-forwarding through the second act was Beyond Thunderdome, which pretty much seems the consensus that the first act and the last act are pretty good, but the whole middle part really kind of sags and gets kind of don't give a fuck type of thing. But this is a very solid franchise of films that has become pretty much a cult classic franchise, and it's very interesting to have it come back at this point in time and try to revitalize it in such a drastically different type of action movie style than what you see in a lot of action movies today. That this is a big, bright, colorful, over-the-top, testosterone jacked up on steroids, fire-breathing type of movie that everything about this film is just like, it's all full bore into everything. The production design of this thing, how everything is shot, the action sequences are staged out, everything about this is just so goes for absolute broke with this film. And just like, if you're going to come back and you're going to try to make an impact, this is the type of way you make an impact. Something that is going to be amazingly eye-catching and just fabulous to look at. That the main thing, yeah, you see from the trailers that this film just has an amazing visual style to it, that you got popping colors all over this film, that the saturation is so thick in this film that you just don't see so many films, big budget, blockbuster style films that just get this amount of vibrance and brightness to them. That a lot of things are a lot more gritty now. Not to say this film isn't gritty, but a lot of films kind of go a little bit more muted or really dark or stuff like that, which, if you've done well, it's done well. But when you see something just like, it's so excited to be that vibrant, that colorful and everything, it's a real joy to have that on screen. And I knew I had to see this on a big screen, so I went to my local Marcus Theaters, which has an ultra screen, which is like awesome. I had to see this thing in a large format cinema. It's like, it did not disappoint, because the cinematography in Mad Max Fury Road is just amazing. This is a type of film you do need to see on a large screen, because the depth, the quality of everything, you just get so much out of even close-up shots on a big, huge screen like that. Just like, you get so much into the film in a certain way that, I mean, there's just so many things to say about the cinematography, that George Miller has the film shot with such amazing scope. There are certain moments in this film, just like, they have so much scale. It just looks so huge and big and epic that you don't get. You got a lot of films these days, especially the superhero films, that try to be big and epic, but you don't get something with the visual scale that this film gives you, that you just see. And there are moments I was just like awed, just like when the sandstorm scene happens, it's like they keep pulling back and pulling back. You see the gigantic storm and all these little cars going across the landscape, and just like this, holy Christ, this thing is amazing. It's just like, the way the film is shot is so spectacular. The action sequences are shot so impeccably well that there's obviously handheld camera work, but it doesn't go in that shaky cam realm to make things incoherent. Everything is very easy to follow, even with a lot of dynamic shots, a lot of good fast editing to keep the pace going, but it just works so well with everything that they're doing. There's so much, even not just action, but there's just so much going on in the frame and everything, that there's so much madness, there's so much chaos and such, but it's still so amazingly eye-popping and catching and just adrenaline fueled. Like I said, this film just jacks everything up all the way up, and just kind of an amazing thing that if you realize that with the film, you go into it and you just start absorbing it, and you just take all that in, just like you realize that this is a film going as far over the top as it can. With certain elements, you really just like start embracing it. You know, like all the crazy ass car designs are just like jacked up freaking monster trucks and everything, and muscle cars and everything. Just like, man, the designs of this stuff are just like, it's just completely insane, completely crazy, and that's perfect for a post-apocalyptic type of film to just go completely balls out with that type of stuff. The design, the action, everything. But I'm a guy who likes character. I like story. That you can have all the spectacle in the world, but if you don't have a good story, or you at least don't have good characters, it doesn't have the cohesion to hold everything together, to give it a certain sense of purpose, to keep you invested in why these things are happening, the consequences, the reasons for why one action sequence leads to another. And I thought the cast in this thing was really damn good on the side of protagonists. That the villains, yeah, they're wild and wacky and crazy designs and all that kind of stuff. They're just great to look at, but they don't have a lot of character really kind of invest yourself into. There's not really going to be anything that they say or particularly do or whatnot there's really kind of terribly memorable or whatnot. But I really got invested in Tom Hardy's performance as Max in this film. That it is a character that doesn't have a hell of a lot of dialogue, but you just like, there's something the way he handles the role, it just has a certain quirkiness, a sort of nice charisma, that there's a little bit of odd wit in there, whatnot. Just like, you really get the sense of this guy. He is a little, the mad part of Mad Max really is applicable, because he gets a little kind of, he's a little crazy and whatnot. He's got probably some post-traumatic stress from all the wild shit he's endured in this post-apocalyptic heat-soaked wasteland and everything, so he's a little off balance, but he's still got that right heart with him, that it takes a certain amount of time for him to get to trust people, because it's so much, everyone's out to survive on their own and whatnot. You can't really trust people too far, but it's nice seeing these characters begin to trust one another and grow and have a bond with everything between Max and Furiosa, portrayed by Charlize Theron fantastically. Even Nicholas Hoult's character in this film, who is a guy who starts out working for the villains, but kind of has this arc that goes throughout the film, that it begins to change, and it becomes a very heartfelt character that you really just start really enjoying, because he has such a good performance in the film to really kind of flesh this character out, give him some heart, give him a little bit of something to relate to, just something to enjoy with the character, and just like how all the protagonist characters really started fleshing out and really kind of bonding and whatnot. Even the girls who are being transported away from all this darkness and danger, they even have some good moments of their own. They do have little character traits. They're not just there to be there. They have a certain amount of character to them that becomes certainly important, and they have certain interactions and certain dynamics and certain things with other characters in the film that really kind of push things forward, that everyone has a little bit of something to contribute to the overall story, or just between the characters themselves to allow them to grow a little bit. That, yeah, the film is just jam-packed with just over-the-top action, but it's those quieter moments when the film settles down for a little bit, and you've got these little things where the characters are interacting, that they're developing or whatnot. It's really what makes me feel like it's a more whole film. Then we get more and more that you feel purpose, you feel a connection with these characters, that there's some emotional threads being weaved through the story here that makes things have a purpose overall, that really gets me invested in. Because if I'm not invested in the characters, I really don't care how good the action is. So it's a real testament to the quality of the actors in this film, and how everything is written with the characters to really make me invested in what happens to them. And George Miller is obviously a director who knows how to capture spectacle in such an amazing,
unique type of way and still give you very good characters that have a lot of subtlety to them, that to counterbalance all the outlandish sort of extremely comic booky type of villains that you have in this film, that they looked like they jumped off a comic book page completely. The design of them, the makeup work, all of it, all the stuff that's so outlandish and so over the top. You got all these fairly grounded protagonists in the film that have a lot of subtlety to them, that Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron, obviously they're great actors, and they bring so much to these roles. They're just subtle, they have emotion to them, they don't go over the top with what they are, and it creates that nice counterbalance of things. It kind of anchors the film down to a certain amount that you don't get so completely over the top that things just become completely farcical. You have grounded, gritty characters that you can really relate to, really enjoy in this film. I thought everyone just did a really solid job with the acting in the film, and just like I said, the production design, the costumes, everything in this one, just like, it's so over the top, just completely bursting with creativity and imagination that you just don't see quite so much these days, that everyone's trying to make things a lot more kind of realistic and grounded and interesting. This one's just like, screw that, I'm going to burst the floodgates open on my imagination and just let it all fly out on screen with an amazing vision too. So I thought Mad Max Fury Road was an enjoyable film that, after I got out of the film, the film didn't blow me away. But then I started kind of thinking about simmering, let things settle in. It's like those little quiet moments where the characters are building their development and fleshing things out really is what kind of, that's the thing that kind of gives me the little glimmer of the film. That's because, certainly because there's so much over-the-top action right from the beginning of the film that it's like, you don't really get that sort of rising dramatic feel of the film. That you kind of start little spurts of action. Like a lot of action films, they have spurts of action, but then they kind of build it to a very huge spectacle at the end of the film. This film is just spectacle and spectacle, but there's still great action sequences. Everything is so extremely well choreographed, so well edited, and so well shot. Everything just like, there's so many outlandish, crazy things in the film, but there's just such great action in the film that, like I said, if you're going to see this film, and you really should, you should support something like this that is well made with a great vision, amazing imagination too, and some really solid actors who definitely deserve, especially someone like Tom Hardy, definitely deserves to have his career pushed forward into a much more mainstream type of way. That the guy really deserves to be a big, major, bankable type of star because he's such an amazing actor. This is a film you definitely should see on the biggest screen you possibly can. I did not see it in 3D, but I hear the 3D is quite stellar. And overall, I thought the film was very well done. Like I said, I would like to get more of the characters. That seems like the film is very strongly sort of Fiora's story and everything, and Max is kind of there along for the ride. He's kind of on the sideline of it. He kind of gets wrapped up in the whole whirlwind of the whole film, and just kind of becomes invested in things that I like to see more flesh out, a little bit more development, just get a little bit more into the characters. But overall, I thought it was a very good film. I have fewer complaints about than I did Avengers, which I thought, could have been better here and there. They didn't blow me away, but I think this film, if you're with a raucous crowd, because, man, so many times I see films these days and that nobody's into things. They get no raucous type of anything, just like everyone just kind of sits there in silence the whole film, and no one gets excited for anything. It just kind of, I'd like to see a film with a raucous crowd, and that'd be fucking amazing, because that would change my whole experience for a film. It would just get me amped up so much. So if you know a place that has real lively crowds or whatnot, definitely go see it with them, because I think they'd really just gush over this film. I'd definitely say go see it. Even if you're like me, you've barely even seen much of the other Mad Max films, you don't need to, because this film stands completely on its own, has a little bit of sort of information at the beginning to kind of give you a background generally on the setting and the character of Max, to just kind of get you going on the film. Then boom, it moves on on its story, on its action, all this stuff. It's a self-contained film. You don't need to see the rest of the franchise, but definitely if you have seen the rest of the franchise, I would definitely like to hear your comments about which film has been your favorite. Most people really cite The Road Warrior as the best of the whole franchise. But with Fury Road out now, if you've seen it, definitely tell me how things compare with the rest of the franchise. And just post your comments below. If you enjoyed the film, let me know what you thought. And it's really all I got. There's not it's a simple story, not a whole lot to get into in that type of way, but I thought all the acting, the characters were really well handled. That is the strong backbone of the film that really carries it through and definitely leaves you wanting a little bit more from these characters. You'd like to see them explored a little bit more depth and stuff, so I really enjoyed that. That's definitely what gets me going. So definitely recommend it. Go see it. And that's all I already got for you guys. We'll see what else comes up in the near future. And once I got another video for you guys, you'll see it. So take care. Bye-bye.